You're at your old trusty boat. You call mighty sparrow. I'm in the city of Mardi Gras.
Welcome to the Sailing into Oblivion podcast, where we sit down with everyday people who do extraordinary things. I'm your host, Jerome Rand. Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the show. Now, if you've listened to the podcast before, you might have heard me mention a surprise kind of interview conversation coming up, and it happened. And that's what this show is. It's a fantastic conversation with none other than Elliott Smith from the Golden Globe Race 2022. We sat down in St. Augustine, Florida. We were in actually a little college library. That was the place we found to be able to have a quiet spot. So we do whisper a little bit, but I think the audio is pretty good. It was fantastic. This guy is just amazing. Total kindred spirits. He's got an incredible story. I didn't want to just ask him to tell me what happened. I really had a few questions about what it's like to go and sort of be on the center stage, on the world stage of sailing, and go through the process and all that sort of stuff. So we get into some pretty cool subjects. And like I said, really just we both have pretty similar takes on sailing and adventuring, and also on what happens when things don't go the right way. So very enjoyable. But before we get in, I got two things. One, Sparrow is pretty much ready for action once again. And there are just a few shout outs I want to make. I want to thank Scott for the teak. I want to thank George and Ted for bringing the gallows down. I want to thank all of the people who contributed to getting all the parts and things that were necessary to get Sparrow going, and a huge thanks to Brian for his overwhelming generosity with parts, time, making connections. He was part of the reason why I was able to even do this podcast. So really, really big thanks to that group, and I'm sure there's many more that I'm forgetting, but without their generous help with money and time, it really wouldn't we wouldn't be ready to go again. So I'm feeling pretty good. So big thanks to them. And then, this podcast, essentially to get to this, which I've always wanted to be able to keep the show in person. But with that comes sort of the price of, renting a car and then going and traveling and, all that sort of stuff. But I believe in this podcast enough that I was going to put my money where my mouth is and see how this goes. Essentially, I want to thank the Patreon family for that, because you're a huge reason why I was able to even do this. And so big thanks there. And I'm hoping to grow things enough to the point where I can really just hit the road and start getting some heavy hitters on this show. And, with Sven's connections in the sailing world, I think that's definitely a possibility. And I'm going to work as hard as I can to create the funds and everything that I can to be able to do things like a podcast road trip, which I think would be awesome in the fall of this year, but we will see. But if you do want to support the show, like I always say, just follow the link to the Patreon group. And the Patreon family is 48 strong. Thank you all so much. But we could always use more help. And if you want to do that, just follow the link. It's much appreciated. We still got the merch out there, all the shirts and hoodies and all that sort of stuff. Link in the description as well. And then if you just want to reach out to the show, sailingintooblivion.com, podcast link, and contact the show. So without further ado, my conversation with Elliott Smith. Elliott Smith, my goodness. Here we are in this college library down here outside of St. Augustine, Florida. Yeah. Thank you so much for sitting down, taking a little time with me, man.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I'm stoked you came all the way down here and just to say hey.
Well, hey, I've got fantastic listeners to this podcast. They write in all sorts of stuff, and I'm trying to up the game. And you, my friend, are pretty legendary right now.
Yeah, I guess so. It's calmed down finally.
Yeah, well, yeah. That's some of the stuff that I'm
really interested in, because, you know, when I did my trip, my friends and family knew I was doing it, but that was it.
Mm.
You know, there wasn't any sponsorship, there wasn't any of that, and so there wasn't a lot of pressure either.
Right.
And I really enjoyed that, and I've continued that on. You, my friend, were on the world stage.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was definitely pretty, I mean, obviously that's new for me. But it was fun for a little bit, I think. And then it also helped me a lot, like, you know, in the sense that it kept me motivated. You know, people were constantly being encouraged by just me trying to get to the start line. And
Yeah.
so it kept, cut.
No, keep going. Don't even worry about it. This,
Okay.
you know, this podcast is pretty real. I don't really even do any
Care about
editing or stuff.
the guy with the leaf
The
blower
leaf
right
blower
behind you.
cruising by.
He's like, he hangs out here all day in
Yeah,
the
I
corner
know.
here.
If he does that, then I might have to punch him in the face. But I think he'll be out of here soon.
Yeah. It's so funny.
We just don't do scripted around here.
Yeah, no. Well, anyways, but yeah, so yeah, it was good because it kept me motivated, like I said, and you know, people were super encouraging and also financial support. So it was like really helpful to have a lot of eyes on me and people being encouraged by things and then donating. And I couldn't have done it without all the small donations and then without my big, you know, support team as well.
Right.
But then at the point where like a week before the race or 2 weeks before the race, and I still had to, I didn't even have my green card yet to be in the race. And I'm like working into the night, like, you know, into 1 a.m. with Josh and Vanya and whoever, random people,
Getting
like
the
helping
boat
out.
ready.
Yeah,
There's still paperwork stuff to do.
Yeah, and physical things on the boat. Like we were still doing stuff that had to meet the clearance for the race rules, and you know, I hadn't even put on my mainsail yet. You know, there's a million things I hadn't done yet, and then, you know, next thing I know, there's a line of people trying to get autographs.
Oh, I'll bet, yeah.
Like
And
all
trying
day.
to be
And I'm
"Hey,
like,
you wanna
I've got to
my
do.
podcast?"
Yeah. But it's like, you know, I'm like, oh, okay. Like, so I try to start setting aside time where I would like dedicate it because I want to be present with the people that are, you know, supporting me and stuff. And I don't want to come off like a jerk by like ignoring them. So I tried to just say like, okay, during these hours, I'll be hanging out around the boat. I'm happy to talk and sign books or whatever.
Well, it is. I mean, it is stressful. I do remember, on any of the trips that I'm going on, you know, as it leads up to those last couple days,
Absolutely.
you're still seeing all these things on your list. But yeah, there are people that are like, hey, come for dinner. We want to feed you before you. And I'm like, dude, I gotta work. Like, it's gonna be an all nighter again.
Yeah.
Because it's nerve wracking trying to plot and plan for these things. Did you start here in the States and sail over to France for your qualifier?
Yeah. So I got the boat somewhere in Virginia, and then I got it shipped on a flatbed truck to St. Augustine.
Oh, okay.
I don't really know why. I guess I was thinking resources were cheaper. I have family in Florida. Yeah, I don't know why I thought that was important.
Like home base, man.
Yeah. But I hadn't really been around St. Augustine much in the past, like a little bit of Jacksonville. But anyway, so I rebuilt the boat here in St. Augustine and then sailed it north once I finally got in the water. Like the week after I splashed it, I put the mast up, bent on the sails, and like left with my girlfriend to go to Massachusetts to do more of a refit and stage to cross for the Atlantic sail, which was the qualifying sail for me.
And that has to be what, 2,000 miles or something?
I think it's 2,000 miles solo without stopping.
Okay.
Yeah.
And had you done any solo sailing before this?
Yeah, I'd done some, but mainly just like bopping around the Bahamas, like so day sails, and then, you know, I think my longest solo sail was like before the Atlantic crossing was maybe like 3 days from like Florida to North Carolina.
Dude, talking about jumping into the deep end. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, it's only one way to do it sometimes.
What was sort of like the impetus, I guess, of like, I want to do that, and now I'm actually going to go do that? Like, what was the spark, I guess?
Yeah, I think, I don't know, Metissier's Long Way, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big one in my life.
Yeah,
sure.
it seems to be in a lot of people's that go out and do things, which is cool.
Voyage for Madmen.
Right.
You read that one?
I haven't.
Oh, that
I
one
know that's the
basically-
GGR.
Yeah, encompasses
overall
all
one.
of it. They tell a lot about the story of Crowhurst.
I figured, yeah.
But just because books in Hollywood love a tragedy like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
But yeah, I think Metissier is a big inspiration to try something like sailing around the world. And then, I don't know, I just felt like really called to. And the more I like put it out there, the more like the world seemed to kind of respond in a really positive way. And I just took it and ran with it.
dude, and how old are you?
I just turned 28. So I
Whole
was
world,
like
and he's
26,
just a pup.
25. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Feels like I'm getting older though already.
Well, you know what? The ocean will age you. That's for sure.
The sciatic nerve will come next, right?
You'll be dealing with that. You'll be hating it. No, but I've always thought that's kind of one of the perks of being an adventurer. The more wrinkles, the more authentic. So you lose that vanity thing after your first big trip, and you're like, I want to look like this.
Yeah, no, totally. I feel that. Yeah.
Oh man, holy smokes. Okay, so early 20s, you're already thinking about doing that, and then I don't know. I guess what was how because I didn't even consider the only history I have with the GGR was that when I found out they were doing it in 2018, I moved my trip up a year to 2017 because I
do it before it.
Yeah, well, I just didn't want to be caught up in that or seen as like this American pirate who's trying to do the same thing, but he's not in the race. And thankfully, it worked out all right as far as the weather, and it wasn't a terrible Southern Ocean season. We had a lot of named storms that came down there, but there wasn't any colossal hurricane force, all that sort of stuff. I didn't, all that. But trying to get where was I going? I go off into the weeds sometimes.
No, so do I. It's all good.
Yeah. But I guess, how did the idea of like I'm gonna take part in that race? Where did that come from?
That's a good question. I really don't have a really solid answer for that. I think reading The Long Way, reading books like Dove, which was like one of my first inspirations to learn how to sail.
Oh yeah.
I think I just I don't know if maybe one of my friends, Captain Randy, sent it to me check this out. Like they're doing another rerun of the GGR. And, I started sailing after the 2018 GGR. Like I'm fairly very new, right around then. So I never heard about it during that time.
Yeah.
So, but Randy was like, "Hey man, like I know you're talking about like sailing around the world. Like, would you ever think about just doing it in a race or something?" And I'm like, "No, that sounds terrible. Why would I do that?" And then I was like, "Nonstop? That sounds horrible too." And then some point after reading Long Way and then I don't know. I really don't know who the first person to really mention it to me, but I know I talked about it with my friend Vanya in the Bahamas on his boat, and I was on my boat, and I went over to him for his place for dinner, and we were chatting about A Long Way, and he kind of mentioned this GGR again, and he ended up being my main sponsor that pretty much put me through.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it was really funny that we just kind of spitballing, talking about like dreaming about how cool it is, and like the new race and the 2022 sounds really cool, and
this
next thing I
been
know,
like 2020.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Probably mid 2020, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're
maybe
like,
early.
okay, we got 2 years.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I didn't think I would really do it at this time.
Oh, really?
In the beginning of 2020, we were just like talking about it,
Yeah.
and then I think I had just like put my name in the hat through GGR. I talked to Don, and he was like, "Well, do you have the qualifications? Sounds like you're pretty new. You haven't done this, that. You don't have a boat, blah, blah. You don't have any money." And I was like, he's like, "You don't have enough for the entry fee or the application fee?" And I was like, "No." And I was like, "Well, I can sell my old boat and that'll pay for this." And he was like, "All right, like, well, if you want in, you let me know when you have the application fee." And I had the application fee soon. And then I guess my name was up on the waiting list, and he gave me a call one day and was like, "Hey man, you want the spot?" you're up. You got to make a decision soon. Otherwise, we're going to give it the next waiting list person. So I was just like, I'm in. And I was like, shit.
Yeah, right.
You know, I was like, it was nice. It was cool to say like, oh, I'm on the waiting list for the GGR. But then when you're in the GGR, you're like, oh no.
It's like, well, wait a minute. What did I just sign up for?
Yeah. And I was like, and how much time do I have? Like, oh no. But yeah, so somewhere around those times, I just was like, all right, let's do it.
Let's do it. And how long between then and you procuring the boat you were going to use?
It took me a long time to get the boat. I think I got the boat about a little more than a year before the start of the line.
Oh, wow.
So a year and a half. I got it in like late spring of the year before, so 2021.
Okay.
And then I refit the boat for like 8 months straight, just replacing
in the boatyard.
Yeah, everything myself and friends that didn't really know what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was
group
like,
effort.
Yeah, and I mean, I spent so many crazy hours on that boat, like rebuilding bulkheads and glass work, and I mean, you know, every plumbing, every wire, every single thing was ripped out of the boat and replaced.
Well, and that's one of the sort of things people don't think about a lot with this race is that, you know, these aren't new boats. They're old boats.
Right.
My boat was
old.
44, 45 years old when I left.
Yeah, wow.
And, you know, I think there's some credence to that as far as like, that's pretty awesome. You're taking an old boat. So you've had to work on it quite a bit. And you're trying to do this thing that even brand new speedboats can't sometimes make it through without breaking. So
yeah.
That's, oh man. So, and for me, yeah, it was essentially, I had about a year, I guess, between buying the boat, figuring out how to solo sail, because I'd never done that.
Yeah.
And I spent that time down in the Caribbean, did a couple little rips out into the Atlantic, sailed it up to Maine, hauled it out. And then I had, I think like 4 months.
Wow.
3 months maybe,
okay.
to do everything I needed to do, provisioning, fixing, all that stuff. But I didn't bend the sails on Sparrow until 2 days before I left, like the new sails and all the slides.
That's pretty much me too.
Yeah, right. Well, that was one of the things why I really wanted to
funny.
Be able to sit down with you. It was just that I was like, man, I think he and our stories are a lot alike. And not so much, you know, just the trip around the world, but and I know we'll get into this, but, you know, I've done 4 big trips. Only one of them's been successful. All the other ones, I'm either flipping the boat over, breaking everything, busting the bowsprit, and then end up having to turn back and get back to the States. And,
Wow.
You know,
I didn't know
it's,
that.
Yeah, it's been a rocky road.
All 4 on Mighty Sparrow you're talking?
Okay. Yeah. Because, you know, I mean, the life of a solo sailor in the United States, it's not a huge lucrative sort of thing to do. It's not NASCAR. It's not football.
No, and we're not YouTube stars, so
no, definitely not. So, you know,
we're not wearing our bikinis out there. Not for the show, at least.
Not for the show, at least. Oh man. Well, so you get that, and I guess my big question is, like, with all the pressures and stuff of doing that in the public eye. What were some of the biggest challenges? I know you said people are sort of trying to grab you for your attention and stuff, but I mean, underneath all that, sort of psychologically, is it pretty tough sort of knowing that you're going to have to do these interviews, you're going to have to do the checkpoints along the way and all that sort of stuff? Sort of being beholden to this thing that you're...
Yeah. Before the race, it didn't bother me. I don't know why. I think I knew it was going to be part of it, and I just accepted it. I wouldn't have done like a lot of people were like really, and at times it bothered me. At times, like, you know, besides, it bothered me just in the sense of like, it was, like you said, grabbing my attention, taking me away from what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But I also knew what I was signing up for. You know, it was all in the rules, you know, it's all in the notice of race. And, you know, Don talks about the whole time. It's about, you know, a lot of this is for the fans and the media, and like that's how it is. If you don't want to be a part of that, then you don't have to be in the race. You can go do it without the race. And so I tried to remind myself that every time I would get, you know, angry and just like have to check my ego a little bit and realize what I signed up for, and It is what it is. And so it didn't bother me, but I was a little conscious going into the race about the checkpoints, because I thought that was before the race, I was a little worried about those, worried that I would be like, this sounds like a pretty cool place to stop. Like, Canaries, like right on. And then like, video timing, like, my girlfriend or my dad or whatever. And like being like, oh, maybe I'll just hang out a little bit longer, or whatever. And like suck me into the world that I was like leaving behind for a bit. But it ended up being those 2 checkpoints that I made it to, Canaries in South Africa, ended up being awesome. And I was really thankful for them. And also what was cool about them is they gave me the motivation to keep going for some reason. Like I, had like the anxiety of getting close to land, approaching, getting there, and then like being like, I don't need this. I have more to go. I have more to do. My mission's not over. So it was it was like a restart basically each time, because it was like a break. Or it wasn't a break, obviously, but it was like a psychological reset, because you have something 3 times to get like geared up for. You're like, oh sweet, like if I can just get to Canaries, and then okay, now if I can just get to around Trinidad, and then it's like, okay, if I can just get to South Africa, if I can just get to Australia, rather than like thinking about it like I have to make it around the whole world. It broke it up for me. Yeah, and I think even you wrote about it in your book, like you were looking at it as a chapter at a time, basically. You were saying like Equator, Cape Good Hope, or I don't remember how you broke it up, but I think you also did that, right?
Yeah, essentially, I was so overwhelmed because I was thinking,
it's a
like,
huge task.
Cow, like, Cape Horn, what time am I going to get there and all stuff? And it just, it raises the blood pressure and even anxiety. And so I shrunk down my thinking, and I was like, I've crossed the Atlantic a couple times. So I know I can do that. So if I can just make it to the equator, we'll go from there. And then, the next one was the South Atlantic. I crossed that before. So do that one. It's obviously pretty freaking scary. The minute you get below 40 south, that's like a whole different story. But just to sort of, I guess a big part of it really is controlling your mental faculties.
Totally.
And being able to say to yourself, no, we're not letting, Good Hope in the Indian Ocean enter into my brain, because I'm still in the North Atlantic. I'm just going to sort of push it out, which is way easier said than done.
Yeah, no, it is. It is easier said than done. But yeah, one step at a time. I think I'm usually lucky that I feel like I'm pretty lucky at being usually pretty present. And that's what I like sailing. It really forces you to be present.
Absolutely.
And take it one step at a time, painfully slow at a time, every day. 100 miles is a good day, but... So yeah, I just kind of did it like that, and I kept on telling myself that horrible saying where it's like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, and then, but like this is more than elephant. Like my buddy Nick he says one time he was like, man, yeah, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. He goes, well, how do you eat an airplane? I'm like, I don't know. And he goes, one bite at a time. I was like, damn, that's what it feels like, going around the world solo. It's like one bite of an airplane at a time.
That's great. Well, it is, dude. I mean, as far as endurance challenges, doing that in an old boat. I mean, you used to be able to say it about the Vendée Globe, but now they get around so fast. It's like, it's great. The year that I did it was the year they set the new world record for solo around the world.
Is that right?
It's that French guy. I can't believe I can't remember his name, but I think he did it in 42 days.
Holy smokes.
Yeah,
really?
So he left like a month after I did, and he got back like 5 months before.
Did you see him pass you and come back around?
Oh, he's probably freaking warp speed, man. God, his boat was, I don't know, 100-foot trimaran or something. Wow. I don't even know.
Wow.
Maybe it was like 70. I'm not sure, but totally different ball game.
World.
Different budget too, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure he had a different budget than you and I times 5 combined.
Oh man. I was always curious about like the sort of safety aspects of being in an organized sort of race like that. I feel like, the Southern Ocean is one of the most dangerous places anybody can be, because no matter what, it's not like they have boats following you or anything like that.
Right.
But were there like protocols and things that they went through with you guys as far as like, okay, so you're in the middle of the Indian Ocean like you were, and let's say, well, there was one competitor who,
Tapia.
His boat sunk, but he was picked up by another competitor.
Right.
Were there other, like, when something like that happens, are there ships that are coming out?
Not necessarily, but I would say I think that is a benefit of doing something like being in the GGRs. I would say it's definitely a lot safer in the sense that there's numbers, in the sense that there's people nearby-ish, other sailors, hopefully, unless you're in the back, like I was for a little bit. So they just, any Mayday, any kind of big alerts is texted to us on our YB3 tracker phone thing. So we can text race control at any time with those and with any like safety means, and they do the same to us. And so anytime that any wind is predicted over 35 knots, they give us a forecast warning.
That's nice.
So that was nice and huge because it just sucks because they say we can use weather facts and stuff, but it's pretty not that trustworthy out in the middle of the sea. Sometimes can't get a hold of certain stations and etc. So it's like, before stations were everywhere, and now they're very few and far between that are actually working.
I got my grid files, bro. I got a 10-day forecast, man.
I know, right?
I do. Side note, just want to say hats off, bro, because I've only been in a situation where I lost my capability to download weather once, for maybe like a month and a half. But
I think you set your computer right in the book you wrote about. The computer
on that trip, but I was able to sort that out. But a couple of trips ago, the sat phone just went kaput, so I couldn't do it. And I still had people sort of telling me, that's going to do this, it's going to do that, but being able to see a weather map and everything.
Yeah, it makes a big difference, huh?
I mean, seriously, hats off. Like the barometer is great. But
no, it was tricky. I think, especially when race control would send you, like, they'd give you sometimes, I don't know why, sometimes they decided, like, they could send you, like, the center of the low is moving this direction, and, like, this is the wind speed on the north and south side of it. And then sometimes they wouldn't tell you that. And sometimes, I don't know, I was just like, it seemed kind of random, like what but I was like, sometimes it was detailed, sometimes it wasn't. And I was like, okay, I guess if I had really something to worry about, they would be extra detailed, I guess. But so a few times it gave me a little scares, like, you could sort
of read between the lines. Like if it was like a 2-page detailed report, you'd be
exactly.
Like, okay, I guess we got something real bad coming. Man. So that would definitely be nice to at least know that you're getting that, because I mean, back in the day when the original one, they had those old Marconi radios,
right?
But again, I mean, once you get down to the Southern Ocean, it's sort of like all bets are off, really.
No, totally. And then I think also, besides like being near other competitors, able to maybe make an assist or not, we have like a 24/7 medic teledoctor, like designed to help people on boats. So, and they're awesome. Like the guy who runs that whole program is like, it's really, really impressive stuff. So thankfully I never had to call them, but so that helps. And then, Don and their team, like, is linked with all of the emergency people near like the coast where we're going to be at.
Oh, like
so
South
they
Africa,
like have,
Chile,
so they have quick access to those resources to help make a save if something needs to happen, like, something like a Tapia situation. Or in the 2018 one where Abalash and
in the Indian Ocean,
Connor,
right?
They lost both their boats, and then or Abalash lost his boat, and Connor, they left both of them, and then same with Susie Goodall and a few other people. So, I mean, I think it definitely helps being a safety mindset, like being in an organization with GGR.
Yeah.
But I didn't really think about it. I just hoped that would never happen.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
Jeez. Well, and that's one of those things. I mean, that old adage of hope for the best, but prepare for the worst.
Right, sure.
You definitely want to do that. But with something as large scale as this, going around the world in an old boat, a lot of those things just don't apply because it's just, it's terrible that something I've encountered a lot where people, you could tell somebody you climbed Everest and they'll be like, holy cow. You tell somebody you've sailed around the world alone without stopping and they're like, neat. Well, okay. And they don't really understand it.
No, they
all.
don't. Yeah.
And they don't realize that it takes, 9 months or whatever. And
Right.
I don't know. That's always something. But, with presentations and things like that, you just end up like bringing either your charts or a pocket globe, and then you show somebody, and then all of a sudden they want to sit down and talk to you for about 2 hours. So like, you gotta.
They have a million questions. Yeah, I'm sure.
So.
Oh man, that's funny.
Well, and so you take off and you get down there. How was as knowing that you're such a fan of Motissier, one of the things that he freaked me out about was rounding Good Hope because he was pretty terrified of it.
Yeah, and he writes like a few times about how he thinks it's worse than Cape Horn.
Yeah,
which I don't have perspective on now, but because I didn't get to Cape Horn, but I can't imagine. You think so?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it's for me. It was basically two things, or pros and cons of going around Good Hope. You've got the Agulhas Current. You can go south of that, but then it takes so long to get past it into the Indian Ocean.
It does.
With the Horn, you get around
5
it
days.
quick, but you're down in the furious 50s. Excuse me.
Hectic down there.
Well, and it's snowing, and you're like, it's like summertime. What is this? It just,
dude, I can't. If there's one thing I'm glad that I miss is not Cape Horn, but the snow and ice that everybody gets down there. Like, that sounds horrible, man.
It's not fun at all. Like
I was not prepared for that. Looking on my boat, like now, like thinking about what the other people have gone through and are going through, like Ian right now and Jeremy and everybody else has gone through. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe it's a good thing what happened is what happened because I might have died down there at Cape Horn, like unprepared.
Always a possibility, unfortunately, but it is always a possibility. I mean, it is. I think it's one of the most dangerous things anybody can attempt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. But it is. That's how was your? So you have to pull in to Cape Town.
Yeah, on the west side. Yeah.
And that was where you first discovered the problems with the bowsprit?
Right after. So I flew into Cape Town and I start, at this point I'm like finally dialing in my boat and I'm like feeling pretty happy about like, my progress and like gaining ground and leaving a few people behind me. And I was like, all right, like, I might obviously have no chance to catch Simon, but, or whatever at this time I'm thinking, but, at least I have a good shot of, making top 3 maybe if I keep this up and I get lucky. But then, I pull into Cape Town and I leave, and of course, like the wind is coming right from the southwest, and I have to go southeast, I have to go south because to get under the bank. Yeah, and they're predicting like a low pressure moving in eventually, so I didn't want to cut across the bank in the one fair weather day I had. And get caught in there with the pressure moving across. So I'm like beating, like basically going southwest, and the wind's coming straight from the south. And I'm just like, direction. So I'm going almost directly west to tack back. And then, so I'm going the wrong direction and I'm bashing into everything, just trying to go quick. And then at some point that night after I'd left, I noticed like my rig seemed a little bit more slack and like my mast moved a little bit in the shims around the because I have a keel step. So I was like, and I was like, maybe I should pack the jib away. So I packed that up and then was just rocking the staysail until the morning, and then it calmed down and I tacked back over and I'm going through like a million freaking fishing boats that, is I mean, tuna are jumping everywhere. I'm catching tuna left and right, but it's like, I'm like, all right, now I'm going to go see what's going on with the rig. And I go up on the bowsprit, and now it's like super calm. It's like flat almost. And I'm pretty much just below Cape of Good Hope again, or just below, Cape of Good Hope / Table Bay area, or False Bay.
How far south of that?
Probably 15, 20 miles.
Oh, okay.
Because I started to cut across, and I knew I was going to hit some light winds, and I was thinking about just trying to get across the bank then rather than having to go all the way south.
Mm-hmm.
Since I was talking to fishing boats about weather, so I felt pretty good about a little shortcut there.
Nice.
And then I'm up on the bowsprit looking around, and I'm like, what is going on? Why is everything so loose? And then I look to the sides, and the frame, the bowsprit, the tube, it's just cracked completely in half on the right side and completely buckled on the left side of it. And I was like, I kind of start breaking down right there. And I'm like, it just felt so surreal. Surreal in the sense that I was like, it just didn't feel right that my journey was over. I felt like all of a sudden I felt very prideful and very like frustrated that like, why would the universe like tell me this is my path and like support me so much? And I was like feeling so confident and like surprising myself. And every time I talk to people like Don or on the interviews every week, like he's just constantly like, you have no idea how many people are rooting for you. I'm like, great, thanks for telling me that. And then but in one way it kept me motivated. And then so I'm thinking that all of that, I'm like gonna be letting people down, letting myself down, letting my whole dream is getting crushed right now, possibly. And then I was just like, well, it's dead calm right now. Maybe I can like just motor straight into False Bay, grab a anchor right there in Simonstown area and see if I can fix it myself. And then if not, maybe I'll drop out. Because I didn't really want to do Chichester. I guess I was a little too prideful.
Right.
And then I was like,
well, that's understandable, though.
Yeah. And so I was like, well, okay. So I was like, that's the first step. Don't quit yet. Don't get out the phone and like freak out. Like, everything's okay. So I just dropped a few halyards and spinnaker halyards down to,
sure everything.
Yeah. And then so I motor ends flat calm. It's super nice out. It's beautiful. And getting to Simonstown finally and settle in there right before the evening and start assessing everything overnight, just thinking about it, not doing anything, thinking about Matissier's style of like how he bent his bowsprit right there and fixed it. And I was like, well, mine's not freaking bent, mine's cracked in half. It's a little different, but I was like, he got lucky on there. And then next morning I just kind of tried to dial everything in, think about exactly the steps, what it would make sense to re-support everything properly.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did it, and I thought it was really good and strong, and eventually it lasted a few weeks, and it buckled further away from the initial break. So the whole thing was riddled with corrosion on the inside.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's just, there's no way I could keep fixing it.
Was it aluminum or
stainless? It was stainless, and the inside of it was thin stainless tubing, like pretty thin, and it was sleeved with regular steel on the inside, apparently.
Oh.
So the steel sleeve on the inside of the tubing was
corroding.
It was just a pile of rust, like dust.
Oh, dude.
Yeah. So it got into the stainless eventually and ruined it, and that's what gave it away.
Oh, jeez.
But I had no idea it was sleeved with steel. I wasn't going to cut my bowsprit in half and check it before the race. Right. I just assumed it was solid.
There's only so much that you can like really investigate. There has to be some
with the time that I had
trust.
And
right
money. Yeah. So, but yeah.
I'm just like picturing it because Sparrow's got an old wooden one, and we had one situation where I almost broke it in the doldrums headed north. Out at sea for I think like 7-8 months almost, and I was getting stupid and lazy, not lazy, but just stupid, and pitch black night, super light winds, doldrums, had the full huge giant drifter, full mainsail up, went to bed, And I woke up to the boat just lurching over, a squall just rolled in, and basically go up, and I could see the three sandwiched boards together had started to delaminate, so it got like tweaked. And this is big,
huge
strip,
timber,
right? And you know, I was lucky, I got away with that one, but not this next trip, but the trip after that, I went through a tropical storm and smashing down over the waves. Ended up finding that underneath the bowsprit, the supports, there were a bunch of cracks. Yeah. Right in the deck, there was water getting in, and that ended that trip. But I remember sitting there, and I'm hove to. I just hit the southeast trade winds, and I'm looking at what's going on, and I, like you, I'm sitting there like, holy shit, like, this is it. I don't think I'm going to be able to keep going. It's not safe. And I was headed to Cape Horn to go around it backwards. Into the Pacific. Right. That was sort of that impetus for that trip. And it's like it's hard to describe the feeling, because you're sitting out there out at sea, and you're like, this isn't gonna work. Like, is it? How is there? And you're scouring your brain, or at least.
And you have nobody else to run this over with.
Nobody.
And I'm huge on. I mean, you can ask anybody, but especially my girlfriend. I mean, I need help. You know, ordering what to eat for lunch at a restaurant.
What pants should I put on
today? Yeah, you know, but it's funny that somebody like that also tried to sail around the world by themselves. But I'm that same person, so
yeah, right.
But I can imagine. I know what you mean. It's like it's very strange to feel that and try and decide whether is this a time to push and persevere, and you have this like almost masculine or competitiveness, whatever it is, to be like, ego, or is it just like, sometimes it takes like a little bit of strength and overcoming, to figure things out and persevere. Mm-hmm. But at what point, it's hard to know what line is it crossing.
Totally.
Could I have tried to keep going with halyards as my stay? Probably
could have tried that.
Probably could have. And I sailed 3,000 more miles with halyards down, all the way from, middle of Indian Ocean to Australia. So, and there's a few storms I went through like that, but, so I think about that a lot.
I always found, cause the people that inspired us to go out there, the Knox Johnsons, Matissier's, all these people, they have there's so many stories of this heroic overcoming,
especially Knox Johnson's, right?
Oh, my God. Anytime I needed a bit of a boost, I would read his book for, and that one was A World of My Own. I'd read that for, like, the old, like, oh, I can do it, too.
Yeah.
But I would read, I think it was Chichester's book, because he complained so much. And
he does.
I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be that guy. I'm going to actually try and stay on the positive side. No offense to him. I mean, he was obviously epic. But, it's really hard, because you want to be one of those people. So you're sitting there questioning yourself.
Right.
Like, what kind of person am I?
Right.
Am I the one that's going to give up?
Right.
I don't know. It's tough. And
it is
to be sitting there in the middle of a freaking ocean.
Well, it's tough, especially, I bet, for you as a person that's already done something epic or already completed a goal like sailing around the world. And then you're like, okay, I know I have it in me. Like I can I've gone through some crazy shit, like why can't I go through this? Why can't I figure out my way around this? And like, so it's tough because, and for me too, it's like, okay, like I've come through so much adversity already getting to where I'm at. Like what's one more? But then I was like, well, I don't know. And so that's why I decided to try and fix and keep going.
Yeah.
And then, it all buckled again. It, turned out not to be the best, but.
Well, but, just the fact that you gave it a go and headed out into what I consider to be the worst ocean.
Yeah.
Basically the Southern Ocean section of the Indian Ocean. I mean, it's pretty. Talk to Randall Reeves. He'll tell you all about it. His knockdown when he was trying to do the first figure eight landed him in Hobart because he was, blew out his portholes and all that sort of stuff. That's a scary ocean, man.
Yeah, no. It definitely can be.
I had come back from my trip, right? Uh-huh. where I get severely knocked down, boats damaged, lose solar panels, gallows, Dodger, all this stuff. It's a nightmare, right?
Yeah.
But I'm in the North Atlantic. I'm like 400 miles away from Bermuda. You know, I'm in reach of rescue.
Right.
And then it takes another 15, 20 days to get back to land. And then I get back, and then I'm watching you. And
I leave port with the jerry rig.
I'm like,
people had a
holy
heart
cow.
attack over that shit.
Well, I was like, holy cow. All right, he's going to do it. He's got this.
Yeah.
Because I was always, you know, I was one of your fanboys, man. Seriously, I was like, he's American. He's a young gun. He's got this.
Oh, thanks.
But yeah, when the announcement came out that you had basically more issues in the middle of the Indian Ocean, it put my trip into perspective. I was like, that's like the one place I would never want to be, the middle of the Indian Ocean. There's nothing out there. I don't even know if they really still keep people on Amsterdam Island.
I don't know either.
But there's so many horrific stories about, you know, because Antarctica is pretty close and those systems coming off of there.
Yeah, I definitely got pretty fair weather since then, since it broke the second time. So I was pretty lucky.
Oh, I did a lot of live streams on YouTube where I was like, all right, so Elliott looks like he's going to have this. And I'm trying to like dissect it. And
epic.
You know, because that was kind of the funny thing for the first time to do, which was I had a lot of people that were looking at the weather when I was out there, and they were doing
and you're doing it for somebody else
and I'm
now.
doing it in the comfort of Sparrow tied up to a dock, you know, where it's like, oh, I've got electricity and all stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that must have been when you knew that it wasn't going to work and you were going to have to just get to land. You're in the middle of the Indian Ocean. I mean, that had to be freaking scary. Were they giving you weather at that point?
No. I started getting weather once it broke again. They gave me an update for the next 2 days.
Oh, okay.
Like telling them that I was going to try and, or at first I was like, I think I have to quit. You know, there's no way. And then I was like, well, I have this backup stay. I was like, well, shit, I can make it a stem rig boat and just cut off the bowsprit and, you know, pitch it or, you know, keep it on in the V-berth or whatever and take it all apart. So that was my first idea. I was like, make a stem rig.
Yeah.
It'd be slower, but I'll be safe. And then so I'm up there. It's like 15-foot swells and there's like hardly any wind. But I'm at the top of the mast, like taking down the furler, and I get it down, which is a feet. And then, you know, I get it on deck, and it's, you know, it's 10, 15 feet longer than my boat. So it's bouncing in the water, dragging in the water while I'm like working on it. I'm like getting out the angle grinder. I'm like cutting everything, and I cut this furler section too short. And then this happened, and I only have one stay lock. And, you know, and then I make the decision, like, I can't get this furler to work. Like it's just not going to work. And so I was like, okay, well, I have the backup stay. So I climb up, I tether the stay, the turnbuckle. I tether the turnbuckle to the chain plate and climb the mast again. I've done like 8 climbs at this point or something like that.
Yeah,
and it's just, I mean, my rails are bearing side to side, you know, because it was just choppy waves. But I was thinking, like, you know, like, I'm in the Southern Ocean. Like, I could get a huge storm tomorrow. I don't know. And I was like, panic. I was like, I don't want just my halyards down in a storm.
Well, it's impossible to just sit there
and not do anything.
Yeah,
and be like, I'm waiting for better weather.
Yeah.
So I was just like, I gotta work. And that was one of those moments you're like, okay, I'm gonna overcome this. You know, like, I'm strong. Like, be the Knox Johnson and hand steer for 200 days plus, you know, or whatever. And so I'm like doing that. I'm up on the top of the mast, and my ribs are like already bruising, and my knuckles are like, I mean, my hands are like spasming because I'm just holding on so hard. Yeah. I'm like pushing, clevis pins with my mouth and my tongue trying to get, and I'm dropping everything overboard. And then I dropped the stay at some point when I had pretty much all the blocks set up and the stay lock set up and everything. And I dropped the stay, and I was like, damn it. And I'm like coming down, and then I see the turnbuckle is spinning. Oh no. And I was like, did I not put a pin through it? And then I'm like trying to hurry, and I've got this self-gree trying to get myself down the mast, and like I'm like about to just cut the rope and climb down as fast as I can because I see it spinning, and I'm like, no, I'll get down. It's like fine. And then I'm like just below the spreaders, and I see it unravel all the way and it slips overboard, and that was my last stay. And I was like, that's when I was like, okay, now that was the biggest sign. Like, I just kind of laughed. You know, I had a little bit of tears, but a little bit of laugh. And
Well, almost a little. You must felt like almost a little relief.
Relief, yeah, a little bit.
The battle's over.
Yeah, it's like, well, at least I fucking tried my best.
Yeah.
And I gave it a go, and I made it 3 weeks with the first repair, and I tried a second one and gave it my all, but just wasn't patient enough for good weather to do it properly. But
for people who haven't been in the Southern Ocean, it's pretty rare to get anything
super calm,
close to a flat where the boat's not
pitching around.
And our old boats, I mean, I hate to say this, but I don't normally do like sort of any sort of research really before I sit down to talk to somebody, because I like to sort of have just a genuine conversation. I get some flack from it every once in a while, but what type of boat was it?
It's called a Gale Force 34.
Gale Force 34.
So pretty similar to West Sail 32, but
full keel.
Yeah.
How heavy?
I don't know, 19,000.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty big.
Yeah.
But
so that's gonna basically do the old rolly.
Yeah, it still rolls a good bit. Yeah. And it's pretty, hourglassy, pretty rounded. Like, it's pretty similar underneath as a West Sail, but the back isn't a double ender. It starts to look like it, and then he shapes it off. I actually love the design of the boat. I think it's awesome. I think once I started to figure out actually how to sail it, it was proven itself to be pretty quick too.
What were some of the hull speeds you were getting? Just like a normal powered up awesome day.
Yeah, easily 6.5.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, 6 plus.
Nice.
So there was days where like Ian would be reporting that he was probably going like 5.5, like powered up in the same winds, and I was going like 6.5, and I was just like, see ya. I was like putting days in front of him at the time, and then I'm hearing like I was making the same. I think for a little bit, apparently I had like the fastest or most miles in a single day until Kirsten crushed it near Cape Horn.
Oh, right.
So, so I was like feeling pretty good about, being able to get the boat moving when I was finally learning to trim the boat properly and stuff. It took me a while to learn.
It takes a long time. Those older boats, I mean, unless you've been sailing on them for years, it takes a while to actually figure them out.
Yeah, and I never, I'm new to sailing in general, and I think I've done like one beer can race and, and then another one with my old Russian captain in the bay. So I've done like 2 races that were like an hour long, my whole life. So
from those 2
to GGR. And then,
GGR.
So it was like, I don't know how to trim things super proper. I don't know how to set things up the right way.
Right.
It took me pretty much till the doldrums to figure out that, moving the jib cars so I could actually make a huge difference.
Well, see, that's the funny thing. Like when I did mine, I had thought for maybe a split second about trying to enter the GGR 2018, and that just disappeared very quick because I'm just not a racer.
Okay,
and
I was wondering why you never.
Yeah, that and the boat's too slow. I would definitely. It took me 271 days. Granted, it was a little bit longer trip.
Yeah,
because you're starting from the States and you got to go all the way over.
Right. But, I think you would have held your own.
This is what
you would have beaten. You would have kept up with the trade winds. like Ian and Guy Waits' boat.
Maybe the only way you could figure, or I would have a chance at actually winning that race it would have to be such a horrific season down in the Southern
everybody
Ocean
else gets
that I was the last man standing.
Which
and I don't
almost happened this year.
I know. I don't want to be there for that because I know how bad the Southern Ocean can get, and I don't. I'm cool with my experience down there for sure. But oh man, gosh, it's so crazy. So how did it feel pulling into? You pulled into Fremantle, right?
Yeah. Have you been to Fremantle?
No.
It's an awesome place. I felt good. A little sad.
A little bit mixed emotions, right?
Yeah, pretty mixed. It was cool. The people that welcomed me actually ended up letting me stay at their house and house sit for a while they were away. And my girlfriend came and visited, and so
nice.
we explored Australia a little bit together, at least West Australia. And but yeah, when I pulled in, Pip and Sharpie were super welcoming. They're throwing me fruit and chocolate and
nice.
Guiding me in because I didn't have any charts of the area, so I was kind of blind.
Right.
Which is there's a lot of reefs around there, so I'm really thankful that somebody let me in, because I probably would have made a stupid decision.
Oh, dude, yeah. Well, did you like sort of hove to for a night or something just outside of there?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You pulled in daylight. Smart, definitely.
Yeah. I learned from somebody else's unfortunate race ending decision in the Canaries.
Yeah, I know.
But,
that was crazy because, I, as an American, I'm always supporting any Americans that are doing solo sailing stuff. And when that happened, I was like, dang it.
He's a character, man. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure.
But yeah, it was pulling in Fremantle was a little bit mixed. Yeah, I was excited to like talk to people again, and friends and loved ones and stuff. But yeah, I was a little bit sad for a bit. Still get that way. I still like think about just so much effort and so many crazy beautiful things lining up. And it was hard for me. The hardest thing so far has been about abandoning the mission a little bit soon or early, was for some reason when things start to line up in your life and like things start pushing you in a way, and you're like getting all encouragement from all places, and you're following all these signs, and you think you're on this like right path and everything just works out, and then one day it doesn't, and one day it shuts down, and you don't have any say in it, and you can't push through or persevere or ask for help to get by. Like, you just have to let it go. And I didn't really think, I just wanted some kind of affirmation that like it was all like, I don't know what I wanted or what I expected to give me this approval that it was all for something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was like I needed to see a vision out at sea,
right?
Or needed to rescue somebody, or another racer had abandoned his boat and I had to pick him up.
Happened to be there because because divine intervention put me in this place. I'm expecting something like that, I think, or like a lot of me getting into the race and the boat name Second Wind, like having to deal with stuff with my mom and all this other stuff, and just like feeling a lot of that kind of energy, I guess you could say. And like I was expecting something, whatever it was, to happen to make it, and nothing really happened, so it was kind of disappointing. Like I was joking with my friends like before the race, and they're like, dude, like, are you expecting to like be changed, or like, are you gonna like take mushrooms out there and shit, all this stuff? And I was like, no, I think I'm just trying to be mostly sober. I'll bring some beer or something and keep me warm or something every now and then. And then I was like, but no, I'm not gonna take any drugs out there and stuff. I just want to be pretty natural and with the ocean. And I was like, but maybe I'll just be so like, monk-like and sober-like and meditating all day, and then I'll just start levitating one day, so I'm like half expecting me to start doing some crazy shit. Able to move objects with my mind.
Exactly.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. So I was like hoping for shit like that, and then it doesn't happen, and then you're sitting in Australia and you're at a bar or at a restaurant, and then next thing you know, you're buying a new cell phone plan, and it's just like every reality just comes back, and then you're back in the States, and I'm broke again and don't have a job, and it's just like, oh, okay. And then I see all my friends and nothing's really changed. And
right.
You're like, all right, it's kind of disappointing.
I could see how that definitely can feel like that. And I guess I've experienced that some with some of the shorter trips when the plan doesn't work out and you turn around and all that sort of stuff. But I, as like an outside person viewing in, I would hope that you realize just how ballsy that was to keep going after Cape Town. Because I mean, like, no joke, that Indian Ocean is terrifying.
Yeah, I guess I didn't know.
It really, when I saw that, I was fully impressed. I was just like, holy cow. Because that, people can say they're going to do all these things, but when you physically go and make that leap and you trust, yourself and you trust your boat and all that sort of stuff, and you venture off into one of the scariest places in the world, that is a complete judge of your character. And I would think, geez, just going forward in life, you got that one checked right off. I don't know if I would have done that. I don't even know if I had pulled in close to Cape Town and my water pump broke at that point, I don't know if I would have continued on without at least stopping and trying to find a new one. I mean, the ocean saved me in a way because I was already so far in, and I was like, well,
it's just makes sense to keep going almost. Yeah,
I might as well aim for Australia to be the next pit stop if I can't catch enough water.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, for you to go and take a boat that's like broken pretty seriously and substantially, and then just be like, dude, I'm going for it. That says a lot. I mean,
oh, thanks. I mean, I am, and I don't mean to sound too sad about it, but I'm definitely proud of what I've done and how far I made it, and getting the start line was big enough, honestly, and so I'm not like super disappointed. I wouldn't say that, but it's a little bit. It goes, some days I'm feeling happy about what I did, and some days I'm not, and then, but I think, like you said, I'm definitely proud of that. I pushed myself and pushed the boat and decide to go back out there and not make a decision based off of fear, but out of love and hope and stuff. So so I definitely am, and I learned a lot in all of that scenario, and it is what it is. And I think it was funny because as I was approaching Australia, I started picking up on HF, ABC radio, like their Australian broadcast radio, and so there's talking like national coverage, and then it's like the NPR basically of Australia, and it was cool. And they're playing like all sorts of different interviews and podcasts and specials, and along with news and stuff and a bunch of useless sports stuff, and so it was fun, and I listened to that a lot. And there's a theme that seemed to happening for me in the radio, which was interesting, but it was like stuff about things not going the way people expect them to end. And there's, it was like different specials. Like one was about like an author, and one was about like a tennis player or something. And, but it all working out for the better in some way. And then one point the author has this book, and he's getting interviewed about the book, and he's like, I kind of am. People say I'm a little, kind of sad in my writing and a little depressing sometimes. But that's life sometimes, He's like, not everything gets wrapped up in a neat bow at the end of the story, Sometimes, but a lot of times it doesn't, And he even goes something. He's like, the dying family member doesn't always say something poetic right before they die to you. Sometimes it's just a mix of words that don't make any sense, and he's like, that's how it goes. And I was like,
me another,
yeah. And you're like, what? That's the last words,
like,
so
no.
I was like hearing that, and I was encouraged in the sense that like, oh, it's okay. This is life. Like I can still learn from this. I can still grow from this, and focus on where I can grow and learn from what happened. And so that's what I'm trying to do, and still trying to do. But yeah, it's like an everyday thing.
Well, and it, the ocean has taught me a million things, but I think one of the most, the one that's impacted me the most is that sort of yin and yang of things are bad, things are good.
Yeah, like a switch, huh?
Totally.
Out there.
But with the absence of the bad, the good can only be at a certain level.
So good, right?
And you increase the bad or add some in there, and then you get to the good, and the good's that much better.
Yeah.
And, one of the things when I wanted to try to do the figure eight voyage Randall Reeves did,
right,
but without stopping at all. So he had
Did he stop?
He had to do some stops in the Northwest Passage, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Which, because of the way he does it, starting on the West Coast and the passage is
He
the
kinda
last.
has to.
He kind of has to. The only way to really, I think,
Go from east.
is
to
go
west.
from the east, do the Northwest Passage, and make it through that last
What
stop.
did
Rutherford?
Yeah, did he not
did
do
it
that?
like that? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So he left, but he had to. His water pump broke. He used the same one I did. His broke somewhere pretty close to Nova Scotia or Newfoundland.
Huh.
So he had to have somebody bring out another one.
Oh wow.
But he was able to then just go
Keep
and make
going.
it through without having to stop. And one of the reasons that I wanted to do that, besides just another big epic voyage, was so on my trip around the world, once I got north of the Southern Ocean in the South Atlantic and I'm headed north, I get through the variables.
Yeah.
I think I've been out like maybe 230 days, 220.
Yeah.
And I hit 3 days of like that perfect 12 to 15 knot wind.
Yeah.
Fluffy.
Yeah.
beautiful
Trade wind
clouds.
clouds.
No squalls.
Yeah.
Not really any swell. And just like the boat was on rails and we were just flying. And I didn't have to push the boat obviously because I'm not racing. But they were the 3 best days I've ever had on a sailboat because the relief of, the past 4.5 months battling around, being worried about, the cold and the water and all this sort of stuff. And I thought to myself, I want more of that, but I want it bigger. And the only way I figured I could do that was to add in, essentially almost another circumnavigation just to get to that point and be like, oh my God, like that's where I feel like I would start to like hallucinate and see God.
Yeah.
Be like, I've done it.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, all the voyages that I go on, even if it's just to sail down to the Caribbean or something, that whole like, it's really crummy out and this really sucks.
Yeah.
Makes, 3 days later when the sun comes out.
Glorious.
And and it's something that I've been able to sort of bring into life on land and all that. But it's hard. I mean, you've only been back in the States for how long?
3 weeks, 4, maybe 4 weeks.
So it's still real.
4 weeks.
The adventure's still fresh.
Well, it is in some ways, but it's funny how quick it, slips your mind.
Yeah, true, right?
Yeah, it's really bizarre. One of the first books I started to read, and I'm barely a chapter in still, because it's funny how much you read at sea and then get back on land. What's a book? I forgot how to read. Yeah, no distractions. That's the beauty of it. But in like the first chapter, he like goes on this big walkabout around I think England or something, and he gets really sick after like the year of walking and ends up in a hospital, and then he like looks. And then it describes him like crawling to the window to see like the countryside he just spent a year walking from through. Oh, wow. And he like already can't remember. Everything looks different from the hospital window. Really? And I'm like, I kind of feel in a way as soon as I stepped off the boat, and especially even leaving Australia and leaving Second Wind there, I've been like, did that really happen? Like all of it just seems distant. Like, if I got on a sailboat to sail it right now, I'm like, would I know what to do? I'm like, but I would. I know it's like riding a bike, but it's funny.
I get the nerves,
every time you get back.
Every time I'm about to leave for
the dock,
next voyage, like that first 24 hours is always like, did I do that?
Yeah.
And then you have to put your first reef in and you're like bumbling around. You're like, dude, I have done this literally thousands of times. But after, a couple 100 days out there, you could pretty much put a blindfold on.
Yeah, and dude, just handle the whole boat.
Oh, totally. Yeah. You're like, I smell a squall.
Yeah.
I've got 3 minutes.
Yeah, honestly, though.
Holy smokes. So, the boat's over there.
Yeah.
You still own it? What's
the
plan?
It's still in my name. I'm trying to not get it in my name.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's for sale. It's kind of tough right now trying to decide. Somebody put like a pretty low offer in, but he's a young guy and says he wants to do GGR 26, and he's from Australia and stuff. So more inclined to, I'd rather see the boat sailing and kept up well at least, and rather than just rotting somewhere and making one trip to the nearby island in West Australia once a year. So I might end up having to go with him to just make my ends meet, because I'm moving to California in a few weeks or less now, and then I don't have a car, I don't have any money, so it's like I gotta get a car, I gotta get more tools so I can work, and and or, you know, get my captain's license finally and do charter work or something. But so it's like I probably should start fresh with something in my pocket rather than letting another bill, you know, in a boat start. You know, it's going to be the rainy season there. It's going to start leaking, and I'm not there to fix it.
You don't have anybody to keep an eye on it for it, do you?
Keep an eye on it, yeah, but not anybody that's going to work on it or fix things.
They might look at it and be like, yeah, it's getting pretty dirty.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty
I'll pump the bilge, yeah.
Well, I definitely commend you on that. I've always thought that if I had the choice between selling the boat to somebody who wanted to fix it up and make Sparrow look like a brand new West Sail, or almost give it away to some 25-year-old that's like, dude, I want to go around the world.
Yeah.
Probably like, well, here you go.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, totally.
And I don't know if that's a reality or not.
Yeah. But
it's a very romantic
for me, like,
outlook on it.
I mean, my old boat wasn't anything special and wasn't worth a lot, but I almost gave it away to this young guy, and now he's sailing the hell out of it. And he refit it too, and looks amazing. He's done a great job, and he sends me updates on the boat and him sailing it, and I'm like stoked. I'm so happy. I gave it away for less than I wanted, a lot less than I wanted. So I know I feel that way about Second Wind. And there's just so much connection to me in Second Wind. It was it's not gonna be easy to let it go, but reality is money. You need it sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's all good, and there's gonna be other boats, and there's maybe I come back to it one day, who knows. But
yeah. Well, and again, that's one of the nice parts about being the age that you are.
Yeah.
You got a whole world in front of you, man.
Yeah, totally.
For sure. And from the sounds of it, you're gonna use and abuse it.
Yeah.
I love
definitely.
it. That's the way to go for sure. Let me ask you this: how comfortable are you speaking in public in front of groups of people?
Well, I've gotten a lot more comfortable with it.
Yeah.
It was always kind of a fear of mine growing up, but something I could kind of push past. And then just with all the exposure, talking to people all the time, and before the race, and then in France, like speaking in front of all the crowd of people at times, or like a lot of interviews, video stuff, like podcast stuff. And yeah, I feel pretty comfortable with it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a good challenge and something that I've grown a lot in. So it's kind of exciting. I also really like writing. So I have thought about writing a book about, and just at first I was like, well, I didn't finish. I can't write a book. And I was like,
oh no,
it's more reason to do it,
story.
Because that's like what I was saying. Like, reality is sometimes you don't finish what you started, and that's okay. And I want like people to still feel encouraged by my story in whatever way they need to hear it. That, because my whole thing was I was trying to push the idea that, in some ways I was so unqualified to do what I did. I was least experienced, least, just a long shot. No money, no time. Everything was stacked against me, and I made it farther than most of the people in the race. So, I want people to be encouraged by that, whatever their adversities are, whether it's, something they're born into or something that they're struggling in another way, and that they can do big, amazing things. And even if it doesn't work out all the way they think it will, like something else. So it's for the right reason, as long as you push yourself. And, so why not write about
experience.
that?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and you come out with it, with this experience and with this, knowledge of what happens in the choices that you make in real time when things get bad.
Right.
And so that about most people don't even get a chance to even test that in their lives.
No.
And you had the full on experience.
Definitely.
Well, I would listen to a talk if you gave one. Do you have like a cache of like footage from the trip?
Yeah, I do. We were, they really wanted to push us to like video a ton.
Mm-hmm.
And I videoed a lot in the Atlantic, and then by the time I got around South Africa, I was like, I'm tired of videoing. Especially in the Southern Ocean, everything looks the damn same.
I know, right?
There's only so much albatross. Yeah, there's only so much albatross you can film, and you're like, all right.
Yeah, right.
These guys are cool, but I'm getting a little. That was definitely something I had started to realize. Like maybe that's another reason my trip ended a little early, because I started to lose like the interest in all of it. I started at some point in the Indian Ocean. I was, especially after I started limping the boat. And it's like driving a car with 2 spare tires.
Yeah, it's sort of like this road trip's over.
Yeah, it's like, and you're just like, oh man, it's so uncomfortable. The boat's not performing the way it should, like, and it's unsafe and this and that. So I started like not really caring to go out of my cabin. Stopped like, I was just reading ferociously at this point and like binge eating like all my food because I had more than I thought now.
So much now.
And so I was just like pounding away everything.
Left.
Oh yeah, that ran out quick. But but yeah, so it was, some ways I think it could have been a blessing that I wasn't not prepared enough for so much time.
Yeah.
And then also that maybe like I was too young and like I just want to still do so many things and
right.
I get bored easily. Maybe it's something to do.
A little
ADHD.
ADHD.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. So
would you do it again if you were given the chance,
As in like in the future?
Mm-hmm. Maybe not the race or anything, but is sailing
solo around the world.
Yeah. Is that something you think?
I mean, I definitely want to finish the circumnavigation. I plan on it firmly. Yeah. And maybe that means like getting a boat in America, something a little bigger or something, and sailing it through the Pacific, take my time, cruising, and then get to Australia, and then do a big jump from maybe go to New Zealand for a little bit, and then do New Zealand under the Horn.
Nice.
I definitely want to go around the Horn. Yeah, and I will. Definitely, but
there's for the listeners, his eyes just like brightened up and they got real beamy.
Yeah, so no, I will, and I'm excited about that one day, but it's not somewhere in the exact near future, or maybe it is, and I don't know it, but yeah, I don't know. I definitely will keep sailing and do ocean voyages. They're amazing, but
yeah,
I don't know if I'm committed to doing the whole thing nonstop around. But maybe, who knows?
Yeah, you never know.
Maybe GGR, maybe not this GGR coming up, but maybe another one day. And because I love the retro aspect, I love it. It's so epic, man.
There's something about it. It's like straight out of a book, man.
No, it's so exciting, and I mean, in some ways, like we were talking about, like not having weather is a little scary, but in some ways, I'm like, who cares? I can't really avoid it. I mean, like like even what I remember reading your part where did you have 2 lows that kind of conjoined or something, or your brother's texting you and he's like, watch out for this, and you're like, oh and you're like, do I go north or south, basically? And you make a decision, but it's like if you don't have that weather information, like I think either way you're gonna get slammed by that shit.
That might have been I cut in front of
some hurricane
Cyclone Irving
in
the Indian Ocean, because I was like, I can't. The smart move would have been to go the other direction, go back to the west, because then at least I would be hit by the lighter winds.
Right, the light side of it.
And, I ended up that was my first knockdown that night.
Right.
But I was just one of those things, where I was like, I got to keep moving. I got to get out of the Southern Ocean. And I had just started
yeah.
I'm like, get me out of here. Yeah. Well, I know we're getting close here on time, but
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, one of the things that I did want to relay out of all my experiences, I end up with like I call it post-adventure depression. And it comes in waves, and it usually lasts like, I don't know, a couple of months for me, typically, until I find myself getting back into like a bit more of a healthy routine of getting the exercise, starting to book like, things like speaking gigs or being more productive and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But usually there's about 2 months where I'm kind of like, ugh.
Yeah.
This just sucks. I don't even want to do anything. Like, I got to catch up on Netflix. And
yeah.
I'll be like, that's my priority. And
yeah, I definitely did that a little bit.
Yeah, it's 100%. I think it's 100% natural, but it does sort of fade. And I've always found that one of the things that pulls me out of it is sort of investigating through other people, other possibilities of different trips, whether it be, hiking or anything, you know, just
something else to look forward to. You're saying?
Yeah, there's like a whole world of stuff that you can do, and I don't know what it would be like to be sort of like you were on the world stage and then leave that.
Yeah, it's weird.
I feel like that would be pretty difficult.
Yeah, 'cause in some ways, you know, I have to admit to myself, there's like we were saying, like the little ego builds up, and you know, you got like thousands of people, like literally, yeah, it's crazy. Like the other day, it was the first day I got back here to St. Augustine. Me and my girlfriend go to the beach, and this guy gets out of the water, and I wasn't even surfing that day or something, and this guy gets out of the water, and he's like, "You Elliott?" And I'm like, "Oh God!" And then I like go to the coffee shop, and this girl's like, "Are you Elliott?" And I'm like, "Oh no," you know. But it's already settled, thank God. But no, in some ways it does. If you know, it sneaks in there. I try to be a humble person, but it sneaks in there, and you're like, "Oh, cool. I'm a cool guy. I've done something fucking cool," you know. And people look up to me, and it feels good. And it's not a bad thing that I'm really happy and proud that I've led a life that somebody can be inspired by. Like, that's awesome. That's a big part of why I wanted to do it, is to give back to all the people that have inspired me, you know? So I have no issue with that. But then, yeah, coming back down, you're like, now nobody really gives a shit.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
It's like, oh, okay. Like, all right, I'm not.
What are you gonna do next?
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
Well, I do know from experience, if you do want little doses of that, and I'd definitely be able to sort of help you in some aspects of this, but if you can put together like a 45-minute or hour-long presentation, there's a lot of people that would love to hear this story, and there's a lot of corporate things that will actually pay you a decent amount of money to stand there and tell them about it, and they can pull their lessons you know, of how to run their little companies and things like that.
Yeah.
From how you were able to, you know, overcome all that adversity and all that sort of stuff. But when you do those, especially like yacht clubs, and I even do like assisted living places, retirement homes and stuff.
Oh, cool.
Dude, you get fanned out. People are like, whoa, you did what?
So if I got to build my ego, I'll do a speech somewhere.
But, you know, keep it in check. You don't have to do it always. But, you know, here and there, it's going to be pretty nice.
That's so funny.
Well, Elliott, I can't thank you enough, man.
Yeah,
This has
absolutely.
been fantastic, dude. And we'll definitely have to stay in touch. And,
Yeah, for sure. I'm
hoping after this summer to hit the road with the podcast and then with a bunch of speaking stuff.
Okay.
So.
Are you hitting the road on the boat or on the car?
Boats can be out of the water, but hitting the car, doing the East Coast first, and then I'm hoping to get out to San Francisco September sometime. Okay. And then work my way up and down. I'm trying to book stuff. Sweet. So who knows? Maybe we can do a double one in San Diego.
Oh, that'd be sick.
That'd be pretty fun, man.
Yeah, man. Definitely hit me up if you're coming west. I got homies along the whole coast, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, any parting words, or I think we can just end it too. It doesn't matter. I don't like putting people on the spot. Like, well,
you got to say something to recap.
This is what it comes down to.
Let's see. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a bow tie finish, I guess, is the lesson I had to learn, you know?
It doesn't have to be
so
a bow tie finish.
We'll just cut it hard right now, you know?
Oh, I thought that was your words of wisdom.
Oh, yeah, well, it worked both ways.
It does, dude. Oh, that's awesome. Elliott, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Absolutely.